All right, welcome in to On the Clock NFL Draft Show. This is episode number 31. We're coming to you twice this week. This evening, we are live. Me and my guy, Nino Brown, at Nino Brown _T2T. We are here with the author of The Beast, the NFL Draft guru, Dane Brugler, at DP Brugler on the Twitter. Dane, how's it going, my guy?
It's going good. We had college football this weekend, right? So plenty of reasons to be excited about that. It's my top 50. My first top 50 of the draft process drops tomorrow, so I'm excited about that on The Athletic. So hopefully people check that out. This is the starting point, right? This is where lay the foundation, the groundwork for what's going to be the next 8 months of our lives as we break these players down, figure out where they're going. So, no, I'm excited for it.
Man, excellent. I know Nino's excited for college football. You got any games you're watching this weekend?
Yeah, I like the Ohio San Diego State game. I like Curtis Rock. I like Mekhi Shaw for the Aztecs. But obviously, it's going to be the Navy Notre Dame game. I want to see Hotman put on the Kelly Green and see what he can do coming back from last year. But I'm excited to pick Dane's brain, and I got a couple guys I want to just ask a few questions about. Seems that it's a couple of my guys came up in this discussion.
Excellent. So I know, Dane, we mentioned you do The Beast every year, over there at The Athletic. Dane's also doing Prospect to Pros, which I know I listen to it on Spotify. I'm sure it's on Apple Podcasts. And I know you guys released an episode this week that I've been listening to, kind of touching base on, some of these players from the previous two draft class. But I want to get into some players, at the start of the show from last year's draft class, the 2023 cycle. Let's catch up a little bit. Now we get to see these teams because it's interesting. Some guys take a major step, when they go to the pros. Some guys take a step back when they go to the pros. And then some guys look like they did, like a Tajay Spears, like a Tank Dell, like a Zay Flowers. It seems to be that those guys, the question was, would the speed change for them when they got to the NFL? And then, I know they're playing against, not first stringers at the moment, but the game speed doesn't look to be affecting these guys. But I want to start with Jalen Hyatt, Dane. All right. So 2022, 12 games, 67 receptions, 1,267 yards, vertical guy for Tennessee offense. What are you seeing from Jalen Hyatt out there with the New York Giants? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the big question will be, what's his exact role going to be? That was the question leading up to the draft. Could he be more than just your take the top off of defense type of receiver, that vertical one cut route runner? And usually for wide receivers, it does take time. Get that chemistry going, get that timing down. We've seen a lot of receivers maybe get acclimated quickly in the last few years. You guys, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave last year, some of these guys. But for a player like Jalen Hyatt, I think it's going to take some time. And how exactly they use him in New York with that offense, I'm very interested to see, because obviously the bread and butter is that deep stuff, and you don't want to take that away. But what else will they sprinkle in with Jalen Hyatt to give him just that added experience? They've got a interesting wide receiver depth chart, and that factors in as well, where you don't necessarily have that alpha, but you've got guys like Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, slot guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, a possession guy like Isaiah Hodgins, and then you got Jalen Hyatt. And so how does he fit in? So I'm definitely eager to see how that plays out.
Excellent. This next guy is Nino's guy. So Nino, I'll let you take this one.
All right. Tank Dell, Houston Texans, went there in the third round. At Houston, in 13 games, he had 109 receptions. He was super twitchy, super electric, 1,400 yards, close to 13 yards per reception, 17 touchdowns. I mean, what he did in Houston seems to be what he's doing in Houston again. He debuted in NFL with a PFF grade of 84.3. He had 5 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. I know, early in camp, they were kind of saying, he was having trouble acclimating himself, but it seems as though as the preseason went on and camp started to unfold, he's really locking it down. So what are your thoughts? Because that's another wide receiver room that's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, again, another interesting wide receiver depth chart with the Texans, right? I mean, you have Nico Collins, who this could be a breakout year for him. John Mechie coming in, didn't play last year, obviously. Hopefully he's able to stay on the field, and because he is a really talented guy with what we saw in Alabama. Hopefully he's able to stay out there, because this guy brings a lot of juice to that offense. And then they bring in Robert Woods, that veteran. So with a Tank Dell, where does he fit? Where does he get onto the field? Obviously, the size is not ideal, 5'8", 165. But, the start-stop acceleration, that short area quickness, that burst, the quick hands, you can use that. And so another guy is just a lot of quick hitters with him. What role does he play? It'll be interesting because with CJ Stroud, assuming I don't think they officially named him the starter, but we all assume it's going to be CJ Stroud. You want to help him out as much as possible. And a guy like Tank Dell, he can get open pretty quickly, give you those quick windows, those catch and run opportunities. So I think it makes sense that we'll see him on the field as well as Stroud.
Real quick, I wanted to ask a question about Hyatt. You had said it's going to take a little bit of time, right? Now, when I looked and did a little research, it's only Wan'Dale Robinson and Hyatt that have long-term contracts over there. I know they have a dozen slot guys. They brought Cole Beasley in, I think, too, right? So there's a dozen guys there. So who do you like? I mean, I know it will take some time, but I'm assuming, with the draft capital and him having the longevity in the contract, they're going to try to contour, the offense to him somewhat, right?
Yeah, but I think we also have to factor in this is a team that was in the playoffs last year. So this is, I think, a team that they believe they're going to make the playoffs again. And so you want to get Jalen Hyatt as much usage as possible, but at the same time, you're going to play the guys that give you the best chance to win. And so, whether that is a guy like Darius Slayton, who Slayton and Hyatt kind of are very similar in what they offer. They're that vertical type of guy. I mean, Daniel Jones, I think that he's probably has a little bit more comfort with Slayton at this point. But again, Hyatt is so explosive. Last year he had, I think, 7 catches of 50+ yards. Like that, you can use that. And even if he starts as your 4th receiver, getting him on the field, and then who knows, by Halloween, Jalen Hyatt, maybe a little bump up in offensive snaps and the route usage and the play calls and how we're trying to manufacture the touches for him. So it'll start a little bit slow, but yeah, I think that we'll have to check back in after Halloween and see just how those first 2 months went.
It seemed like with Jalen Hyatt, the temperature with him was hot and cold. There were a lot of people really high on Hyatt, but then there was a lot of people who weren't so high on Hyatt. So it was interesting to me that he went 4 picks after Tank Dell, in the NFL draft. And we got to see Tank Dell down at the Senior Bowl. And we were saying when we were down there, if the quarterback play was a little bit better, been, I think, even higher, because there were so many plays when he was just blowing DBs away, but they weren't connecting with him. And there's something, maybe this is lazy analysis, but there's something to be said about the wide receiver coming down with the ball and finishing the catch and running into the end zone like that. It puts the exclamation point on what you're seeing. And he had the opportunity, and I don't think the quarterbacks helped him out. But this is a guy, this next guy, Zay Flowers, 22nd overall pick. This guy, he was huge throughout the process, and then late in the process started to surge again. There was buzz about him possibly being the first wide receiver off the board. All right, now, we don't even really have to even touch on what he did at Boston College because everybody knows who Zay Flowers is. He's one of the most explosive players in college football last year. And what we kind of said when we were analyzing him last offseason was it's almost like he's too explosive for his own good. Like everything he does is so abrupt and so sudden, like the subtle nuances to his game, like kind of setting up a defender, a jab step. Like he doesn't do that because he doesn't need to, but he might need to at the next level. He's looked fine so far. What are your thoughts on Zay Flowers?
Yeah, going to Baltimore, they've reworked that wide receiver room, right, with adding in Odell Beckham Jr. Hopefully, who's our Minnesota receiver, first rounder a couple years ago?
Justin Jefferson?
No.
Bateman.
Yes, thank you, Rashad Bateman. Sorry,
Minnesota
totally left my mind there. But hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he's on the field, and but Zay Flowers is going to play. He's going to play a lot, and I'm most interested to see, do they use him as a true 3-level threat? Is he more of just your underneath guy? Does he work primarily out of the slot? Just how do they use him in that Monken offense? Lamar Jackson's got the contract. He's ready to go. But a lot of the things around him are going to look a little bit different this year. It feels like it's an offense ready to take off, and Zay Flowers is definitely a part of that. He brings so much energy to that offense, and we saw it just this past week on against Washington. With the opening drive, that delayed release from the bunch formation, that short area quickness. gets quickly gets open, and then you see the elusiveness. You see the ability to follow the blocks into the end zone. I don't know about deep how much he's going to factor in, but he's going to get a lot of those quick targets, those catch and run opportunities. It'll be fun to see how that exact role evolves throughout the season.
Yeah, Baltimore went up against Washington, and I didn't plan on going this route, but they were a little feisty at camp. And then one of the guys who was being feisty at camp was Emmanuel Forbes. This guy is 160 pounds. There was questions, can he hold up to like playing in the NFL? And I've seen him come downhill in practice. Now he's coming downhill in preseason games. What do we think about the size? Do we think the size is going to be as much of a factor, or you think he's going to figure it out?
I mean, you can't ignore the size. You just don't ignore a guy that's was 166 pounds at the combine.
Yeah.
And this isn't a guy that's, it's like Tank Dell was 164 pounds or whatever, and he's 5'8", so that's a little more proportionate. This guy's almost 6'1". He's 6'1.5" and change. But so you don't ignore that, especially for a guy that needs to be physical, that needs to come downhill. I'm not worried about the mentality. It's more so just as physical as he wants to play, can his body answer the call every single time against some of these physical NFL receivers, some of these backs that are going to be on the outside that he has to come downhill and tackle. So, can those shoulders hold up? Can just the physical nature, mentality-wise, not worried at all, but just the physicality, can he do it? I mean, I understand betting on him, though. The last 6 years, his final 3 years in high school and his first 3 years at Mississippi State, he had a total of 30 interceptions. Like the ball finds him, and it's just not a coincidence. This is a guy that has the ball skills, has the anticipation. He understands what receivers are trying to do with their route. He understands what the offense is trying to do with the quarterback. So I understand betting on that, but it's okay to have concerns about the size, just because it's just so rare to see a guy that's skinny at that position hold up long term. But at the same time, it's also rare to see a guy get his hands on the football so much. And usually those ball skills, that translates pretty well. So totally understand why Washington wanted to bet. I was a little surprised he went ahead of Christian Gonzalez, Deonte Banks, but not surprised he went in the first round. Not surprised. Washington's pretty excited about him.
A question about Zay Flowers. Now, I'm kind of partial because I'm up here in Massachusetts and I got to see Zay a lot last year, but he did things that the numbers don't speak enough, because the quarterback play out of Phil Jerkovich was so up and down, but in that offense, I had a feeling I wanted to ask you, but before the injury to JSN, was there a possibility that Zay Flowers could outproduce JSN year one? Now, down the road, I'm not saying because that's all going to change, but year one, I think Zay Flowers could be more of a target than JSN because he's got two other alphas in front of him where Baltimore's wide open.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. Because Odell Beckham, I mean, you feel like he's going to be part of this mix and, an important part of that offense, but is he going to start 17 games? Probably not. I mean, he'll probably be banged up at some point. Rashad Bateman, a guy with an injury history. Will he be able to play 17 games? You hope, but that seems like probably more unlikely than likely. Zay Flowers, meanwhile, I feel like he's going to be part of this offense. Like a huge a guy that's heavily targeted from day one, from week one all the way throughout the season. And like I said, a lot of those quick hitters that they like to run, could be on boots, could be on nakeds, could be on just any type of misdirection you want to run, out of the slot, work in the middle of the field, catch and run. You're going to get Zay Flowers quickly worked into the mix here. And so, yeah, JSN with the wrist injury, maybe out a little bit, but I think it to be totally fair to bet on Zay Flowers being the most productive rookie in terms of the pass catchers this year.
We'll make a little bet. I'm still even with the injury. I'm willing. I don't my money. I for some reason I see. I think JSN wins rookie of the year. I think he does.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, he go into that offense where it'd be plenty of opportunities in the slot with those, Lockett and Metcalf on the outside, and they want to be the only thing that would maybe hinder it a little bit is I know they want to be more balanced, with the run game. That's why they drafted Zach Charbonnet as early as they did. Kenny Walker is obviously still there. So the run game definitely is a big part of what they want to be. But still, JSN's going to get open. He's going to be a big part of that offense. I think that Zay Flowers, JSN, I get why. I mean, there's definitely an argument there to be had about who's going to be the better producer this year as rookies.
All right, I'm going to jump to one of these last ones before we move to 2024. I want to talk about Ivan Pace, Minnesota Vikings, undrafted free agent. He's another guy who's at the Senior Bowl, solid. He's 5'10", 231 pounds, but he was 10th in the FBS with 125 total tackles in 2021. What are your thoughts on Ivan Pace? It seems to me, I've heard, he's climbing up the depth charts. They're saying now he's ahead of Asamoah on the depth chart. So what are your thoughts on Pace?
Yeah, and that's why they released or why they drafted Brian Asamoah the year before, because they probably thought Eric Kendricks probably not going to be long term here, could be a cut coming up here, and so a guy like Pace, you weren't sure exactly where he's going to be drafted. You love the tape. You love what he did in college, over 125 tackles each of the last 2 years. What he did in the backfield as a blitzer. I mean, he had double-digit sacks this year. Forced fumbles were there, tackles for loss. I mean, as productive as a linebacker as you're going to find. But it's just, okay, he's undersized. He's not a long player. Good athlete, but not an amazing athlete. And so what role is he going to play? What defensive scheme? You knew he wasn't going to be for everybody. A little surprised he went undrafted. I thought maybe in the later round somebody, would take a chance on him, but not surprised that, getting into a camp, he's been able to really make a difference, because this is a guy that he's just a violent player, mean-spirited. There's just no passiveness to him with the way he plays. He's instinctive. He plays violent, plays hard, has some experience on special teams, and that'll be important for him just to, show that, that's part of what I do and what you get with me sticking on the roster. It's good to see him show out, because I thought he deserved to be drafted based off of what he put on tape. It won't be surprised if, 7 years from now, he's still in the league, because he's got the makeup that you need to make it at the NFL level.
Awesome.
He transferred from Miami of Ohio to Cincinnati to go play with his brother to elevate his brother's game and his own game. Right? They wanted to run it out. Dude had 21 and a half tackles for loss last year. And now his brother is getting talked about as a top 15, maybe 20 linebacker in this draft. So it's like they got it. And they both play the same way. They're just little balls of fire that just like to blow up into the running back and QB. So I'm with it.
All right, we're going to move on. But before we move on, I'm pretty fired up. But, Nino, there's some people who don't get as fired up about things as we get about the NFL draft, and they need a little help. All right, so tell them how they can get this help, my guy.
Well, they can go over to Total Titles and click that link, that Duppy link, and they can get that jitterless energy. You need an energy drink, something that's clean and tastes well. Click that link, get 10% off. Duppy, that's where you need to be.
All right. And I know you don't need W when you're talking about this next guy. We're going to the 2024 class, and Dane, I'm going to tell you, we're doing him or him right now, okay? And this first one is between two quarterbacks, and one of the and you know what? The floor is yours, my guy. You go ahead.
So I'm a Bo Nix guy. I was a Bo Nix guy when he was getting ran through the ringer at Auburn. Okay, so I got the jersey just to show that I'm the fan. I'm not the fair weather guy, but I'm also a Penix guy, and I think they're both coming out of what's going to be the end of the Pac-12, pretty much. And these guys are similar in ways, and then there's one way that kind of sticks out. Like Penix, my question with Penix is I know he's got the big arm. He can move himself in the pocket to extend plays. It's just the injuries. I mean, 1 out of 5 years, he's able to complete a full season. Now, Bo's got the bad history to start, right? He looked awful, couldn't man himself, couldn't make plays on the run, couldn't read progressions. Now in Oregon, with Lanning and weapons and an offense that he is pretty much made for him, right? He's a legitimate dual threat quarterback, had 41 total touchdowns, even had a receiving touchdown, 14 rushing touchdowns. He averaged 5 yards per carry. He can make all the throws on the move. I'm not going to lie. His arm gets a little short when he's on the run, but he's great in the short and intermediate on the run. Right now, before the season's played out, Bo or Penix? For
me, it's pretty easy. I think it's Bo. I'm not a Penix guy. Not a guy that I see as a top 75 guy in the draft. I like a lot of what Penix has done. I just don't see him as that top 75 type of prospect. Trust me, I've heard from plenty of Washington fans over the summer who are not happy with that. But look, Bo Nix, one thing that I like to look at when it comes to quarterback prospects is how do they hold up versus the blitz? And some guys struggle with that pressure. Other guys are a little more advanced. And Bo Nix, you think about what he did at Auburn, seeing all that experience that he had, seeing SEC competition early, and then going to Oregon last year. He had his completion percentage against the blitz last year over 70%. Which is just, it's a remarkable number for a college quarterback. But I think it speaks to his poise, his ability to be mobile, use his legs, extend plays, those second chance opportunities, that second reaction plays, they're all over his tape. So whether he's evading or it's a design kind of rollout, whatever it is, I don't have many questions about his toughness. I think he's a very natural thrower. He throws with accuracy. He throws with zip. I wish he tested outside the numbers a little bit more. I think that's, and this is an offense, that Oregon offense, at least last year, they were about 60-40 run to pass. And so it's something that they didn't rely on Bo Nix and that zone read scheme to push the ball with his arm. Now he could do it, especially on post throws. I mean, he was an outstanding post thrower. But he's a guy that really the improvements he made from Auburn to Oregon were really, really impressive. I mean, the decision-making was better. The way that he just controlled the game was better. The self-inflicted wounds, the mental errors, those were way down. So no, I'm not sold on Bo Nix as being a first rounder guy. I think he's a day 2 player. I think he's someone, second round, third round, somewhere in the top. Like I mentioned before, I was working my top 50, and Bo was right there on the border of whether he makes it or whether he doesn't. So, I'm not saying he's a definite first round pick or anything like that, but there's a lot about his game that will translate pretty well to the next level.
If he repeats, sorry, Coach. If he repeats from last year, does that put him in the first round?
It certainly could, because he'd be doing it with a new offensive coordinator. Doing it with, it's one thing it's almost like he went into last year with he didn't cut it at Auburn. So, we'll see what he does at Oregon. I don't think the expectations were necessarily there. He just felt like a little more loose. Okay, well, now there's expectations, both for Oregon and for Bo Nix, more so than last year. What does he do to answer those? Because you want to see how guys answer the adversity. To have some of the low moments at Auburn, his legacy there, and kind of just it not work out, for him to overcome that adversity and do what he did last year at Oregon. If he does that again, especially like I said, with a new play caller, that'll certainly, I think for some teams, could definitely get him in that first round discussion.
He's got all the wide receiver talent he needs. Probably one of the top 10 rooms in the country.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
You mentioned him being outside the top 50, your top 50. And the thing about quarterbacks is you can be outside the top 50 and somebody could like you and somebody can take you in the first round. Yeah. It's much more likely for that to happen at the quarterback position than any other position out there. So if that's going to happen, but now let's say you had a finger on the line. All right, you could lose a finger, you could keep a finger. You had to guess who's the second quarterback off the board. Who would it be?
The second quarterback drafted after Caleb Williams?
Yes.
I'd be pretty surprised if it's not Drake May. I think there's at least, a percentage chance that he's the first quarterback drafted. I think it'll be Caleb, but it's not like 100%. I think there's enough people that like Drake May that you can't rule it out. That's how good Drake May is. He's 6'4". He looks the part. There's a lot of Justin Herbert there. If you like Justin Herbert, you're going to like Drake May. He is. I'll be absolutely shocked if Drake May is not that second quarterback drafted. I'll say it this way: I will be shocked if the first 3, barring injury, I'll be shocked if the first 3 picks in whatever order are not Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr. Not that exact order. Maybe Marvin Harrison goes 2, or what Drake May. Whatever. I'll be shocked if those are not the first 3 players drafted in April.
You don't think Phil Longo's absence has any effect on Drake May next year whatsoever?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Phil Longo, offensive coordinator. You don't think his absence has any effect on Drake May? Because down the stretch, there was no adjustment for Drake May, and it was noticeable.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I think it could end up being a positive. And nothing against Phil Longo, but his offenses They're not really preparing you for the NFL game. And not that they should. I mean, Phil Longo's job is to win college football games, and so, but the Chip Lindsey coming in, I think they're going to be more balanced. I think that they're going to ask him to do a little bit, a few different things, especially with, no more Josh Downs and, the offense just being a little bit different personnel wise. I think it can end up being a positive that he, did it in Phil Longo's offense last year, and he's going to do it in a different offense this year. So at the end of the day, even if the production is not the same, even if he's not in New York for the Heisman ceremony, I do think it could end up being a positive for him, just working in a different system, or just, yeah, exactly, doing some different things. So that it doesn't worry me all that much.
Okay.
All right. I know we only got you for a few more minutes. I got a few more questions I want to get through. This next one, him or him, it's Michigan running backs. I know some people love Donovan Edwards. Some love Blake Corum. Blake Corum, 5'8", 200 pounds. He's an elusive, shifty back at 1,463 yards last year. Donovan Edwards, he's a downhill banger. He's a very good catcher. I think he's got great body control at the catch point. So it's, which flavor? Where are we going?
I go back and forth because I like these two players a lot. To my opinion, these are the two best backs in college football. I think that if the draft were tomorrow, I would bet on them being the first two running backs drafted. But like you said, they offer two very different skill sets. And so it depends on what you're looking for as an offense. I think Donovan Edwards is probably a little more built for the modern NFL with what he does in the passing game. Just the way he can make guys miss, and just, that Purdue game, the Big Ten championship game, he was unbelievable. Just making guys miss, and the way he could string together moves, the quickness. And so Donovan Edwards is so much fun to watch. But Blake Corum, man, this guy is the vision, the decision making, the lower body strength, the way he can spin out of contact, the way the instinctive nature he pairs his feet with his eyes is so impressive. Runs low to the ground naturally. He's a shorter player, but there's energy in his movements that it feels like something's going to happen every time he touches the ball. And regardless, both these backs, they're going to be productive this year. They're playing on an offense where he's got a really talented quarterback. The offensive line might be the best offensive line in college football. So Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, these two guys are going to be super productive. And I think, again, spoiler, both do appear in my top 50 to start the season. That's how high I am on both of them.
Do you have Trey Benson in your top 5 running backs?
I do. Yeah. Trying to think my top 5 is, it's funny. I started the summer and I did my running backs. It was like Blake Corum was 1, Braylon Allen 2, Donovan Edwards 3, and then watching more of these guys, you know what, Donovan Edwards, he just offers more for today's NFL. So I went Edwards, Blake Corum, I think Braylon Allen, I think then it was Trey Benson at that point, and then
Raheem Sanders.
I'm trying to think who was 5. It might have been Shipley. From Clemson, who I like quite a bit. If not him, Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State, he's also there. So Rocket Sanders, Arkansas. Yeah. So yeah, there's some good running backs in this class.
All right, Nino, you got the next one.
All right, people back home, we had a little discussion, and this is a topic that's been coming up, and it's been a topic of college football because if you take Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the picture, he doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been saying and pounding the table that Ibuka is wide receiver 1 in all of college football outside of Marvin Harrison. And for some reason, people aren't really seeing that because they like the shiny toy that they've been seeing for the last, few months. And obviously in the playoff where he just kind of went off. But Ibuka is a dude, 4.3 speed, 36.5-inch vertical. He's got good body control. He's explosive off the line of scrimmage. He can get in and out of his cuts, right? His height, speed, his size, his aggressiveness. He was, Paul Horning finalist last year. He's violent at the point of attack. He can go up in 50-50 balls. We've been seeing him just ball out in camp all over these DBs. I feel bad for Denzel Burke. 74 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, had 2 rushing touchdowns with Marvin Harrison there. And he had 482 yards after the catch. So is it Mbuka or is it Xavier Worthy, who, rumored to have an injury last year? He's got a little bit more speed in him, right? I think he's like a high 4.2 speed or 4.3 right around there. Better route runner, right? He's got Edward Scissorhands when it comes to his cuts in and out. But he had an inconsistent play last year. And Bijan being number 1 option at Texas kind of took away from him. So is it Xavier Worthy or Emeka Egbuka for you?
Pretty easily for me. It's Egbuka. I'm not really a worthy guy. I mean, I like him. But if we're talking about, I mean, Egbuka is a first round player. If we're talking about even like top 50 players, worthy, he's not really in that mix for me.
What about Neighbors?
What's that?
What about Neighbors?
Yeah, I like Neighbor. To me, it's Neighbors and Egbuka fighting it out to be that number 2 receiver.
Yep.
In my mind, Worthy's he's 165 pounds, too many drops. There's a lot to his game that we'll see. He's got this whole season coming up here. This Texas offense will be fun to watch. But yeah, with Egbuka, everything he does, like I don't think you watch him and necessarily just say, oh wow, that's definitely a 4.3 guy. Like he's fast, but everything he does is so subtle. It's his route running, his speed, the way that he can frame catches and quickly put it away. He's not a big guy. He's got okay size, but he's not necessarily big and powerful. Everything he does is just pretty crisp. A lot of what we said about JSN, we're going to be saying a lot of the same things about Egbuka, except he's a better athlete. So, JSN was a 20th overall pick, and Egbuka, I think, is probably going to go in that kind of similar range. We see receivers, they're going to go. Teams want those playmakers, and Egbuka definitely could be that guy. And I mean, I want to see him a little more on the outside. I think he really blew up this past year when JSN was hurt. He was in the slot. So I think he's best in the slot, not slot only, but better in the slot. And then just maybe do a little bit more in terms of making guys miss. All of his yak pretty much came on runway routes, and when he had open space. He's not going to make guys miss. He's not going to break a lot of tackles. So seeing a little bit more of that this year from Egbuka is something I'll have my eye on.
All right, last one. I know I got to get this last question in because this is one that me and Nino are divided on. We're on two sides of this one. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr., alpha, old man linebacker, even wears number 54. Like that's the first thing that stood out to me, as odd as that sounds. When I see a college linebacker wearing a number like 54, coming downhill, being a thumper, dude, all over the field, 92 tackles, 13.5 for loss, 6.5 sacks. But then there's Barrett Carter, who's not the old man linebacker. This dude's a freak athlete. One of the first plays I seen from him, rushing downhill, lineman goes low, hurdles the lineman, gets the quarterback. Like it was one of them. And I maybe, it's window shopping. Like I fell in love right away. And then Dabo Sweeney says he's one of the best pure football players he's had in 20 years. So Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Barrett Carter in Clemson?
This is a pretty easy one for me. I'm taking the better athlete. And with Carter, he not only does he have this play speed versus run and in coverage, he's very twitchy. He's a hyper athletic player, but he also has really strong key and drive skills. He sees it and he goes. So even though, he is going to test well, but it pops on film with the way he moves, the way he processes, and the way he sees things. He can find passing lanes. He can, the blitz, get after the quarterback. So, and that's Jeremiah Trotter's a good player too. Not taking anything away from him. It's just his speed is more average than above average. There are times on tape where I thought he struggled to quickly change directions when he's facing a running back that's cutting against him. But this is a guy that is smart. Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. He'll strike through the ball carriers as a tackler. There's a lot of stopping power with what he offers at the point of attack. So I like both these players, but if I'm going to bet on one of them at this point, it's going to be Barrett Carter. I'm going to bet with the athlete in most cases. Definitely this one for me.
Yeah.
You don't think that Jeremiah Trotter will be a green dot linebacker in the NFL and have more longevity than Carter?
No, I think that, because to me, Carter's a top 25, top 30 player, whereas Trotter's more of a top 50, top 75 type of player. So I don't think that Trotter's, a 6th round pick and Barrett Carter's a first. I don't think there's that type of difference between them. Trotter's just is different with what he offers. And so absolutely could be a guy that sticks in the NFL a long time because the way he processes things, the way everything going on between the ears, he could be built for the NFL game. There's a few areas that, okay, what's he going to do in coverage on third down? Is he a guy that can carry the tight end down the seam at the NFL level? Is he a guy that's going to be able to match a wheel route from the back? And can he do some of these things that he'll be asked to do in the NFL, where I feel a little bit better about Carter being, and again, he is undersized. And so is he, kind of like that JOK type of hybrid linebacker? Is he, so that there are questions with Barrett Carter as well. But more times than not, I'm going to bet on the athlete. And I think that's what you get with Carter.
I know Coach loves him, so I agree with you both. He's a great athlete, but for me, what I saw last year, I felt like he was a better linebacker than Simpson was, and Simpson was praised and I believe he went second round, and
like 34, 35.
Third round, yeah, I thought, yeah.
Oh,
so he fell a little bit further than I thought he would, yeah.
So I felt that Trotter is a better linebacker than Simpson. So I was figuring he was somewhere above him. But I get what you're saying. You're going to go with the athlete who can probably get you more right off the rip, as far as the guy that can have longevity but might not produce as much impact right away.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, these are two really good linebackers, and a reason to be optimistic about that Clemson defense. So, yeah, that and Nate Wiggins at corner, who I'm super high on. I think he's one of the top 3 corners in this draft.
Can I squeeze one more out here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, because this is my guy. I call him DB1. I don't know what anybody else sees in Denzel Burke that Kool-Aid doesn't have. Is it Kool-Aid McKinstry or is it Denzel Burke? I mean, for me, Kool-Aid does everything. Everything you could possibly do. He's physical. He's got length. He's got size. He don't have a problem getting in the backfield and hitting running backs. I mean, he only had 7 run stops. You can ask Bijan about how that felt last year when we tackled him on the sideline.
Right.
He's not afraid of anybody. He's a punt returner. He had over almost 300 yards in punt return. So, he can do it all. Lock it down, like he says. Lock it in. Denzel Burke had great numbers his first year, but I felt like his production kind of fell off the second year. And Kool-Aid beat him in every statistical category and every grade you cross the board. So, what's your thoughts? Who you got, Kool-Aid or Denzel?
Yeah, this is another easy one. It's Kool-Aid. And I mean, based off of what he put on tape last year, I don't think you can draft Denzel Burke in the first 60 picks. I mean, he had that really nice freshman year, but last year it was rough. And I'm definitely eager to see him this year, to see what he does. What do we see from him? That Ohio State defense has plenty of dudes. So it makes it frustrating watching that tape because there's so many guys you want to watch. But Burke's one of them. We'll see what he does this year. Kool-Aid, he's my top ranked corner beginning the season. He's up there as a potential top 10 pick. I don't think he's going to run like amazing. I think he's probably, 4.47, good speed, but not amazing speed. He has such a taller, he's got those long legs, high torso. So there are times where he needs a moment to gear down, defend those comebacks. And that's usually when he gave up those completions. But he is so good using his length at the catch point. He does a great job with the body control, the balance to help with his transitions, make plays. And heck, anybody that can start for Nick Saban on defense as a freshman, especially a position like corner, which is, it's tough for freshmen. But Kool-Aid was out there making plays. And so what he's done the last 2 years, I expect another big year from him this year in 2023. And he'll be right there in that mix to be the first corner off the board.
Love it, man.
When you look at DBs, right? Does it matter to you if they have a bicycle step or a T-step? I've noticed a lot of the guys that I like that close quick, click and close have a bicycle step like Dion. A lot of DBs nowadays have a T-step. What style do you prefer?
Well, something that I've learned is these guys are coached differently, right? It's just whether it's side saddle, whether it's whether it's a pure pedal in terms of the way they react, especially from man and when they're asked to press. These guys are coached different ways, and so I think it's something during the process is you find out those preferences. You find out, okay, you were coached to do this, or this is what you like to do. And so that's a big part of it. Understanding why they're doing what they're doing out there. And, because you want them to play fast. You want them to, especially a position like corner, you need them to play fast. And so playing comfortable, playing under control. That's a big part of this. And so, I think that, I don't know that I have a preference per se, but corner is my favorite position to evaluate because it's like a dance. You had every step has purpose. Every movement better be have some purpose, or you're going to be caught out of position. You're giving up a catch, possibly something more. So I'm a big fan of just studying the corner position and just understanding the dance that what they're trying to do compared to the receiver.
Man, beautiful. We're big fans of you, man, and I appreciate you coming on. Like you brought it this evening. And one of the things I get out of talking to you is when I'm looking at these prospects, hearing the way you describe it, you're more so projecting what the NFL is going to want them to do. And that's definitely something I need to consider. It's one thing to watch them doing what they're supposed to be doing in college, but it's another thing to imagine them on an NFL roster, playing for an NFL team, doing what a defensive coordinator is asking them to do. And that's definitely part of the evaluation process, because who's in charge of drafting these players? Not me. NFL GMs, guys who are trying to fill these people into roles. So that is going to help me develop my big board as we get closer to the season. But Dane, everybody can go check you out on Twitter at DP Brugler. You're on The Athletic. You got the Beast. You got your preseason. When's the top 50 coming out?
Thursday. So tomorrow morning, it'll be up on The Athletic. It's got a cool interface with the graphics that we're rolling out there. So I've got every year, I got a guy that, I kind of go out on a limb and say, listen, I'm betting on these traits. He's going to be drafted high. Last year it was Christian Gonzalez, who didn't go as high as I thought he would, but still was a first-round pick. Year before that, it was Travon Walker, who no one was talking about as a first-rounder, but I'm like, all right, guys, these traits, I'm telling you, he's going to go high. This year, I've got a guy in my top 5. I won't spoil it. I want people to check the top 50. But a guy that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. But he's a guy that I think is going to go high based on the traits.
All right. Well, I'll read it. And between your top 50 and then Bruce Feldman's freak list, like The Athletic this week, it's crushing it. It's keeping us busy. So Nino, I know I'm going to see you again soon. I'm going to let you go. Take us out this evening, Nino.
Well, this is great. I'm glad we were able to do it with Dan on the clock. My man, Coach, as always, hit that button. Take us away.